What if I told you that a seemingly perfect small town has been hiding a dark secret for 48 years? Imagine a double murder so twisted that it left investigators puzzled and families shattered for decades. Now, for the first time, we're unraveling the mystery that has haunted this community for so long. In this chilling tale, we dive deep into the eerie details of the case, the puzzling evidence, and the shocking breakthrough that finally unearthed the truth. Stay with us until the end to uncover how this decades-old mystery was finally solved. This is a story you won't want to miss. The unspeakable tragedy unfolded on a cold October night in 1975. In the heart of this quaint town, nestled between whispering forests and serene lakes, the peace was shattered by a gruesome discovery. The victims, a young couple named Lisa and Tom, were found lifeless in their modest home. Lisa was a beloved schoolteacher with a kind smile, and Tom, a local handyman known for his willingness to help anyone in need. They were last seen attending a community bonfire, mingling with friends and neighbors, seemingly without a care in the world. The night took a sinister turn when Lisa and Tom never returned home. Panic spread through the town as the couple's friends reported their absence. The next morning, a neighbor, concerned after not seeing them, ventured into their house. What they found was enough to haunt anyone's dreams. Lisa and Tom's bodies lay in the living room, their faces frozen in expressions of terror. Initial observations suggested a violent struggle, with overturned furniture and shattered glass scattered across the floor. Bloodstains painted a horrifying picture on the walls. The small town police force, unaccustomed to handling such brutal crimes, were immediately out of their depth. The investigation kicked off with interviews of friends, family members, and anyone who had attended the bonfire that night. Clues were sparse and leads even scarcer. The town, once a safe haven, now buzzed with fear and suspicion. Everyone wondered who could commit such a heinous act and why such a beloved couple would be targeted. The case grew colder with each passing day. The memory of Lisa and Tom etched deeply into the town's psyche. Despite the police's best efforts, the lack of evidence turned the double murder into a shadow that loomed over the town for nearly 5 decades. But as we uncover in this narrative, the chilling breakthrough that finally cracked the case open was as unexpected as it was shocking. The question remained for years: would justice ever be served for Lisa and Tom, and could the town ever find peace again? Lisa Anderson's life was a testament to compassion and dedication. Born and raised in this picturesque town, she had always been a beacon of hope for the children she taught at the local elementary school. Her kind smile had the power to brighten the gloomiest of days. She was known to go the extra mile, staying late to help struggling students and organizing community events to foster a sense of togetherness. Outside of her profession, Lisa was a nature enthusiast, often seen hiking the trails surrounding the town, her golden retriever, Max, by her side. Her love for the outdoors was matched only by her passion for baking. Neighbors fondly recalled the aroma of freshly baked cookies wafting from a kitchen window, a scent that often drew children and adults alike to her doorstep for a treat and a chat. Tom Wilson, on the other hand, was the quintessential handyman, someone who could fix anything with a smile. He moved to the town in his late 20s, quickly becoming a beloved figure in the community. Tom's generosity knew no bounds. He repaired fences, mended roofs, and even built playgrounds for the local kids, all without asking for anything in return. His rough exterior masked a heart of gold. Beneath his rugged hands and weather-beaten face was a man deeply content with the simple pleasures of life, fishing at the lake, playing guitar by the campfire, and spending time with Lisa, whom he adored. Together, Lisa and Tom embodied the spirit of the town, kind, hardworking, and always ready to lend a hand. Their love story was one for the ages. A chance meeting at the local diner blossomed into a lifelong romance. They were inseparable, often seen holding hands while strolling through the town square or dancing together at community gatherings. Their union wasn't just a merging of two lives. It was the coming together of two spirits that seemed destined to be intertwined. The couple's home was a reflection of their warmth and hospitality, a cozy haven where friends and neighbors were always welcome. It was filled with memories and love, from the handwritten notes stuck on the fridge to the handcrafted furniture Tom built with his own hands. For the town's residents, Lisa and Tom were more than just their roles. They were symbols of the community's heart and soul. Their brutal murders left a void that could never be filled, a wound that festered over years of unanswered questions and unresolved grief. As the investigation stalled, the shadow of that tragic night in October 1975 grew darker, forever altering the fabric of the town's collective memory. The realization that such heinous violence could touch the lives of those so deeply cherished shook the community to its core, leaving scars that would remain until the truth finally surfaced. The crime scene was a grim tableau of chaos and violence, immediately setting a harrowing stage for investigators. The living room, once a cozy and welcoming space, was now a nightmare frozen in time. Blood spatter on the walls suggested a brutal and frenzied attack, with streaks trailing towards the hallway, indicating a desperate struggle for survival. Overturned furniture cluttered the floor, marking the spots where Lisa and Tom fought valiantly against their assailant. Shattered glass crunched underfoot, hinting at broken windows or glassware used in the violent encounter. A large, jagged-edged kitchen knife was found near Tom's body, smeared with blood, possibly the murder weapon. A closer examination revealed marks on Tom's hands, consistent with defensive wounds, showing he tried to fend off the attacker. Lisa's body lay closer to the front door, her face pale and terrified, an indication she might have been trying to escape when she was overtaken. The initial theories ranged from a targeted attack due to personal vendetta to a potential robbery gone wrong. However, nothing seemed to be missing from the couple's home, casting doubt on the robbery theory. Forensics collected DNA samples, but with the technology of the 1970s, the evidence was limited and inconclusive. The lack of forced entry suggested the killer was someone the couple knew, or chillingly, someone who was skilled at breaking in unnoticed. As investigators pieced together the physical evidence, they couldn't ignore the eerie sense that this act of violence was driven by something deeply personal, a haunting reflection of the darkness lurking within the human soul. The early days of the investigation were marked by a whirlwind of confusion and desperation. The local police, unaccustomed to dealing with such a brutal crime, found themselves thrust into the center of a chilling nightmare. The first step was to secure the crime scene and gather as much evidence as possible. Officers swarmed the modest house, meticulously photographing and documenting every corner. Yellow tape cordoned off the area, a stark warning to curious onlookers and a reminder of the tragedy that had occurred. Detectives began by interviewing neighbors and acquaintances, hoping to find someone who might have seen or heard something unusual that night. However, the small town community, tight-knit and trusting, seemed blindsided by the crime. Most descriptions were of Lisa and Tom's happy demeanor at the bonfire, with nothing appearing out of the ordinary. As days turned into weeks, the initial flurry of activity began to slow. Blood samples and fingerprints were sent to the lab for analysis, but the technology of the 1970s was limited. The forensic capabilities available to the investigators were far from the advanced techniques we have today, leaving many questions unanswered. One of the significant challenges was the lack of witnesses. The secluded nature of Lisa and Tom's home meant that few people were around to notice comings and goings late at night. Additionally, the seemingly perfect reputation of the couple made it difficult for investigators to identify any potential enemies or suspects. The town's idyllic surface masked an underlying tension, as suspicion fell on anyone who might have had even the slightest disagreement with the victims. Despite hours of grueling interviews and background checks, leads were frustratingly scant. Police also faced the challenge of preserving the integrity of the crime scene. Curious townsfolk, driven by a mix of fear and morbid curiosity, would often try to sneak a peek at the house, potentially contaminating evidence. Officers had to be vigilant, ensuring that nothing was disturbed. A dedicated tip line was established, and while it did receive a flurry of calls, most were dead ends or wild speculations fueled by the town's growing paranoia. Law enforcement agencies from the state were brought in to assist, lending their expertise and resources to the investigation, but even they found themselves stumped by the sheer brutality and apparent randomness of the crime. The few pieces of physical evidence they did have, a bloody knife, fingerprints, and DNA samples, offered little concrete direction without the advanced analytical techniques of modern forensics. The local police chief held several press conferences, urging anyone with information to come forward, but as time passed, the community's hope for a swift resolution began to wane. Frustration and fear seeped into the daily lives of the residents, a constant, invisible barrier that drove wedges between friends and neighbors. As the investigation dragged on, the once vibrant and lively town became subdued, its spirit dampened by the ever-present shadow of fear. The initial investigation, marked by thorough but ultimately futile efforts, left a gaping wound in the community, one that would remain until a breakthrough finally arrived years later. Witness statements formed the backbone of the initial investigation, as detectives combed through the accounts to piece together the events of that fateful night. From the bonfire to the eerie silence that followed, every detail was crucial. One of the most compelling accounts came from Mary Thompson, Lisa's close friend who had been with them at the bonfire. She described Lisa and Tom as their usual selves, happy, affectionate, and engaged in conversations with friends. Mary recalled Lisa mentioning an odd feeling, as if someone had been watching her for a few days prior. This detail, though subtle, planted the seed of suspicion that perhaps the couple was being stalked. Another significant witness was Michael Harris, a neighbor living just a few houses down. Michael reported seeing a shadowy figure lurking near Lisa and Tom's home around 11 p.m., but he couldn't make out any distinct features. He did, however, note the figure's hurried movements and the way it seemed to vanish into the night, which aligned with the timeline of when the murders occurred. This sighting gave investigators their first inkling that the perpetrator might have been lying in wait. Betty and George Evans, who lived across the street, recounted hearing a faint commotion around midnight. At first, they thought it was just an animal rustling through the bushes, but now wished they had paid more attention. Their testimony about the noises, along with Michael's sighting, helped narrow down the time frame of the crime. Yet, with no clear identification, it led to more questions than answers. Among the more intriguing testimonies was that of Jack, a drifter who occasionally did odd jobs around the town. Jack claimed to have seen a rusty, old pickup truck parked near Lisa and Tom's house earlier in the day. He described it as peculiar because the vehicle was unfamiliar in the otherwise close-knit community. This tip gave the police a potential new lead, suggesting that someone from outside the town might have been involved. The challenge with witness accounts was their variability. Small-town gossip and the passage of time often distorted memories, turning clear details into murky recollections. Investigators struggled to separate fact from fiction, trying to piece together a coherent timeline while battling the natural degradation of human memory. Despite these difficulties, each statement added a piece to the puzzle, helping form a more comprehensive picture of the events leading to the tragedy. However, the lack of concrete evidence meant that these accounts could only do so much. They directed suspicion and fueled theories, but without hard proof, the investigation was left grasping at straws. The witness statements, although vital, painted an incomplete picture. They fueled an array of theories and suspects, but ultimately failed to provide the definitive breakthrough needed. As months turned into years, the case grew colder, and the hope of finding justice for Lisa and Tom seemed to fade. Yet, these early accounts remained haunting echoes of that night, crucial fragments of a story that refused to be forgotten, waiting for the day when modern techniques would finally connect the dots they had so painstakingly laid out. The investigation gradually pointed towards a few initial suspects, each with their distinct backgrounds and reasons for being considered persons of interest. Among the first was Jeremy Collins, a former student of Lisa's who had developed an unhealthy obsession with her. Jeremy, in his late teens, was known for his troubled behavior and volatile temper. He had a history of lashing out at those he perceived as authority figures, which made him a suspect in the eyes of the local police. During his interview, detectives noted inconsistencies in his alibi. Jeremy claimed to have spent the night with friends, but they recalled seeing him leave the bonfire early, appearing agitated. His fascination with Lisa, coupled with his erratic behavior, painted a concerning picture. Next on the list was Phil Morton, a local business owner who had a history of run-ins with Tom. Phil and Tom had clashed over a property dispute, escalating tensions between them. While the quarrel seemed minor to outsiders, Phil's temperamental nature and the bitterness of their altercation made investigators wary. Phil had no solid alibi for the night of the murders, adding to the suspicion. When questioned, he appeared defensive, often contradicting himself. However, there was no concrete evidence linking him directly to the crime scene. Another suspect was Rachel Green, a former colleague of Lisa's, who had recently been fired from the school under murky circumstances. Rachel harbored resentment towards Lisa, blaming her for the loss of her job. She was known for her manipulative tendencies and had a reputation for holding grudges. Although she denied any involvement, her alibi was weak, and her sudden departure from town shortly after the murders raised eyebrows among the investigative team. Lastly, there was the enigmatic figure of Jack Turner, the drifter mentioned earlier by some townsfolk. Jack's transient lifestyle and his presence near Lisa and Tom's home on the day of the murders cast a shadow over him. His old pickup truck fit the description provided by witnesses. Jack's elusive nature and vague answers during questioning did little to clear his name. His history of petty crimes, although not violent, made detectives wary of his intentions. Each suspect brought their own set of complexities to the case. Jeremy's obsession, Phil's anger, Rachel's resentment, and Jack's transient nature created a web of intrigue and suspicion that investigators had to untangle. The backgrounds and behaviors of these individuals, combined with the circumstantial evidence, directed the early stages of the investigation. Yet, despite the promising leads, none provided the breakthrough needed to definitively solve the case. The small town remained under the pall of fear and uncertainty, its once clear divisions blurred by the shadowy presence of a killer still at large. The compelling mix of suspects enriched the narrative, transforming it into a whodunit that would leave the community guessing for decades until the unexpected breakthrough finally brought the truth to light. Despite the initial suspects and witness accounts, the investigation was fraught with red herrings and dead ends that left investigators and the community feeling both frustrated and haunted. One of the most glaring false leads came from a local rumor about a stranger seen lurking near the town on several occasions around the time of the murders. This mysterious figure was described as a man in his 30s, often seen wearing a dark coat and hat. Sightings of him were reported by several residents who claimed he had an unsettling aura and seemed to be watching people's homes from a distance. Investigators followed this lead rigorously, tracking down every possible connection to this stranger. However, after months of exhaustive searching and stakeouts, it turned out to be nothing more than a local drifter passing through, with no connections to Lisa and Tom. Another frustrating dead end involved a series of anonymous letters sent to the police station. These letters contained cryptic messages, hinting at knowledge of the murders and even taunting the investigators for their inability to solve the case. The handwriting was analyzed and the paper was traced to a local stationery store, but nothing definitive emerged. Each lead led to another brick wall, and the letters ultimately appeared to be sadistic pranks designed to toy with the emotions of the already strained officials and townspeople. The investigation also faced a significant setback when an anonymous tip suggested that the murders were connected to a series of burglaries in neighboring towns. This theory seemed plausible, especially given the violent nature of the crimes. Detectives cross-referenced all recent break-ins with the details of Lisa and Tom's case, but once again, they found no tangible links. The burglaries were later attributed to a local gang that operated miles away, with no ties whatsoever to the small town. Another red herring came when a retired detective, who had moved to the town in recent years, proposed an elaborate theory involving a local cult. He believed the murders were part of a ritualistic sacrifice, pointing to the mysterious symbols found carved into the trees around the crime scene. This theory gained some traction, with residents recalling vague tales of an old, secretive group that once gathered in the woods. The police followed through, even interviewing former members of disbanded cults, but this lead also fizzled out when the symbols were identified as the work of local teenagers engaging in occult-themed pranks. The investigation hit another roadblock when a former convict, recently released from prison, was found living in the outskirts of the town. His criminal record included violent offenses, making him a prime suspect. However, after intense surveillance and interrogation, it became clear he had alibis for the night of the murders and no motive for targeting Lisa and Tom. These false leads and red herrings cast a long, frustrating shadow over the investigation, creating a sense of helplessness and despair among those seeking justice. Each promising clue that dissolved into nothingness only deepened the mystery and widened the rift within the community. The detectives, feeling the weight of their failure, continued to pore over details, hoping that somewhere, hidden among the false trails, lay the key to unlocking the truth. The passage of time did little to ease the collective anxiety. Instead, it fostered a growing sense of resignation that perhaps Lisa and Tom's killer would never be brought to light. Yet, in the midst of these endless frustrations, the seeds of future breakthroughs were quietly sown, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves and bring closure to a case that had haunted the town for nearly half a century. The case eventually went cold due to a confluence of factors, each compounding the frustration and despair felt by both the families and the investigators. Despite the thorough initial investigation, the lack of concrete evidence, combined with the limitations of forensic technology in the 1970s, meant that many crucial leads could not be followed through to a conclusive end. Witness memories faded, and crucial details were lost to time. Added to this was the small-town police force's inexperience with such brutal crimes. Despite their best efforts, they lacked the resources and expertise needed to solve the case. The emotional toll was staggering. For the families of Lisa and Tom, the pain of their loss was exacerbated by the lack of closure. Every day without answers felt like an open wound, a constant reminder of the loved ones they had been so violently taken from them. Birthdays, holidays, and anniversaries were especially painful, haunted by the ghosts of what might have been. The unresolved grief left a mark on their lives, straining relationships and casting a shadow over moments that should have been filled with joy. The investigators, too, carried the burden of the unsolved case. Each unturned stone and each dead end weighed heavily on their consciences. They found themselves replaying every moment of the investigation, questioning if they had overlooked something critical. The pressure of the community's expectations, combined with their personal sense of duty, created an overwhelming sense of failure that many struggled to shake off. Some investigators took the case home with them, their dreams plagued by the images from the crime scene, their waking hours consumed by thoughts of how they might finally crack the mystery. As the years turned into decades, the case file grew dusty, and the once vivid details became part of the town's eerie folklore. New generations grew up hearing whisperings of the murders, the story becoming a grim legend passed down through hushed conversations. Yet, for those directly touched by the tragedy, the passage of time did not heal the wounds. The cold case left a permanent scar on the community, a chilling reminder of the fragility of life and the sometimes elusive nature of justice. For the families of Lisa and Tom, the question of who was responsible for their deaths lingered as a dark cloud, preventing them from ever truly moving on. The emotional toll of an unsolved murder is profound, a weight that bears down on the soul, creating a sense of helplessness and enduring sorrow. For the investigators, the cold case remained a haunting reminder of their limitations, a painful chapter in their careers that they longed to close but couldn't. The breakthrough in forensic technology that ultimately cracked open this seemingly impenetrable case came decades after the murders. Starting in the late 20th century, and accelerating into the 21st, forensic science underwent rapid and transformative advancements. DNA technology, in particular, revolutionized the way cold cases were approached. While in the 1970s, forensic investigators could only dream of the capabilities we have today, these dreams started becoming reality by the late 1980s. The development of DNA profiling allowed for the identification of individuals with unprecedented accuracy. It was this advancement that would eventually play a pivotal role in solving the double murder of Lisa and Tom. As the new millennium approached, techniques such as polymerase chain reaction, or PCR, became widely used in forensics, enabling scientists to amplify tiny amounts of DNA found at crime scenes to sufficient quantities for analysis. This meant that even the smallest biological sample left behind, such as a drop of blood, a strand of hair, or a fleck of skin, could potentially identify a perpetrator. In the early 2000s, law enforcement agencies began creating and expanding DNA databases, allowing for the cross-referencing of DNA profiles collected from crime scenes with those of known offenders. This development was a game-changer for cold cases, as it provided a way to link previously unidentified DNA samples to individuals with criminal records. Another groundbreaking advancement was the introduction of touch DNA analysis, which allowed for the extraction of genetic material from surfaces that had only been lightly touched. This innovation opened up new possibilities for evidence previously considered too degraded or insignificant for analysis. The constantly improving sensitivity and specificity of forensic tests meant that old evidence could be re-examined with fresh eyes and new hope. The case of Lisa and Tom, which had long been frozen in time, was dusted off and revisited with these enhanced forensic tools. Investigators resubmitted the blood samples, fingerprints, and other biological evidence collected from the crime scene for modern analysis. It was a meticulous process, driven by the quiet determination of forensic scientists committed to shining a light on the darkness that had overshadowed the town for so long. The use of advanced software for reconstructing crime scenes and creating detailed visualizations also played a critical role. These tools allowed investigators to better understand the dynamics of the crime, providing new insights that weren't apparent during the initial investigation. By simulating the events that took place in Lisa and Tom's home, investigators could piece together a more coherent and accurate picture of the attack, identifying key moments and movements that had previously been obscured. Fingerprint analysis also saw significant advancements, with the ability to identify partial prints and compare them against vast databases. Even incomplete or smudged prints, once considered useless, could now potentially lead to a match. This newfound capability prompted investigators to revisit the fingerprints collected from the scene, hoping that modern technology could succeed where old methods had failed. As these forensic technologies evolved, they brought with them the promise of justice, not just for Lisa and Tom, but for countless victims whose cases had grown cold. The commitment to applying these innovations to old cases demonstrated a profound respect for the victims and a relentless pursuit of the truth. It was this intersection of past diligence and present technological prowess that finally brought the long-awaited breakthrough in the double murder case that had haunted a community for nearly half a century. The decision to reopen the case of Lisa and Tom's brutal murder was driven by a combination of relentless determination, from a new generation of investigators and the unwavering hope of their families. The families had never given up seeking justice, their grief and longing for closure echoing through the years. Lisa's sister, Emily, had become a tireless advocate for revisiting the case, often seen in the police precinct, her eyes resolute, carrying clippings and notes she had meticulously gathered over the decades. She refused to let her sister's memory fade into obscurity, determined to keep the case alive in the public consciousness. On the law enforcement side, the cold case unit had undergone significant changes, attracting a cadre of young, ambitious detectives eager to apply the latest forensic techniques to unsolved mysteries. Detective Sarah Jenkins, a lead investigator with a reputation for her dogged pursuit of truth, became particularly invested in the case. Jenkins, inspired by the potential for new forensic methods to shed light on old crimes, requested to review the case files. As she pored over the yellowed documents and faded photographs, she felt a profound connection to Lisa and Tom's story, their vibrant lives cut short so tragically. The official decision to reopen the case came during a meeting where Jenkins presented her findings and the potential for new evidence analysis. She argued passionately that the advancements in DNA technology could provide the breakthrough they so desperately needed. The police chief, moved by her conviction and the constant support from Lisa and Tom's families, agreed to allocate resources to take another look. Reopening the case was not just a bureaucratic decision. It was a commitment to the community, a pledge that no matter how much time had passed, justice was worth pursuing. The investigative team, once again, dove into the evidence with renewed vigor. Every old piece of evidence was meticulously catalogued, and new samples were taken for modern DNA analysis. Jenkins and her team also reached out to the families, who provided them with additional context and details that had been overlooked or forgotten in the initial investigation. As the forensic process began anew, there was a sense of cautious optimism. The community, though scarred and skeptical, watched closely, their hopes reignited by the dedication of those who had vowed to bring closure to this haunting chapter of their history. The reopening of the case was a powerful reminder that the passage of time does not diminish the quest for truth and the possibility of justice that can still be achieved through persistence and modern technology. The new evidence discovered was a game changer and reignited hope for solving the case. As investigators sifted through the old evidence with advanced forensic tools, they uncovered a crucial piece that had been overlooked decades ago. Among the items collected from the crime scene was a small, blood-stained piece of fabric found wedged under a broken floorboard. This fabric, initially disregarded due to the insufficient technology of the time, held a wealth of undiscovered information. The blood on the fabric didn't match Lisa or Tom, suggesting it belonged to someone else, potentially the killer. This discovery was monumental. With renewed determination, the forensic team extracted DNA from the blood sample. Modern techniques allowed them to sequence and analyze the DNA quickly and accurately. The sample was then run through a national database, a resource unavailable during the initial investigation. This led to an unexpected match with a man named Robert Hayes, a drifter with a long history of petty crimes, but no prior link to violent offenses in the town. Further investigation into Hayes revealed that he had lived in the neighboring town during the time of the murders and had disappeared shortly after, only to resurface years later with a different identity. This revelation provided a significant lead. Investigators delved deeper into Hayes' past, interviewing those who knew him and piecing together his movements around the time of the murders. They discovered that he had worked various odd jobs, including some near Lisa and Tom's property. Witnesses recalled seeing a man matching Hayes' description at the community bonfire that night, blending in effortlessly with the crowd. The presence of Robert Hayes at the scene of the crime, combined with the DNA match, created a solid foundation for further probing. Armed with this new evidence, the detectives re-interviewed old witnesses, showing them photos of Hayes from that period. This time, several people identified him as the mysterious figure they had seen around the town and near the couple's home. This tangible link breathed new life into the investigation. Detective Sarah Jenkins and her team were now able to build a timeline of Hayes' activities and establish his connections, movements, and possible motives. The breakthrough also brought a wave of hope to the community and the families of Lisa and Tom. The once cold case was now active, and the possibility of finally bringing the murderer to justice seemed within reach. This renewed hope energized the entire investigative process, pushing everyone involved to work tirelessly towards uncovering the truth and ensuring that Lisa and Tom's legacy would be honored with the justice they deserved. The forensic breakthroughs that played a pivotal role in finally identifying crucial evidence centered around advancements in DNA analysis and modern forensic techniques. These technological strides allowed investigators to re-examine old evidence with a new perspective, leading to significant discoveries. One of the most transformative tools was the development of DNA profiling, which had evolved dramatically since the 1970s. This technique enabled forensic scientists to analyze even the smallest biological samples with remarkable precision. The pivotal breakthrough came when the team revisited the blood-stained piece of fabric found at the crime scene. Initially deemed inconclusive, this piece of evidence was subjected to modern DNA extraction methods. Utilizing polymerase chain reaction, scientists amplified the tiny DNA fragments present in the blood. The process required meticulous attention, ensuring no contamination occurred during extraction. Once the DNA was successfully extracted and amplified, it was compared against national databases. The outcome was startling. A match with Robert Hayes, a drifter who had eluded suspicion for decades. Another crucial advancement was touch DNA analysis, which allowed investigators to obtain genetic material from surfaces that had only been lightly touched. This technique was applied to various objects from the crime scene, including the murder weapon and items around the house. The resulting DNA profiles provided additional evidence linking Hayes to the scene. Additionally, the improvement in fingerprint analysis technology permitted the identification of partial prints that had previously been unusable. Enhanced image processing and matching algorithms helped identify prints on the broken furniture and glass shards, further implicating Hayes. These advancements, combined with the painstaking review of witness statements, allowed investigators to reconstruct the events of that tragic night accurately. The integration of modern forensic tools with the dedication of a new generation of detectives finally brought clarity to a case that had haunted a community for nearly half a century. The application of these breakthroughs not only provided the answers long sought by the families of Lisa and Tom, but also underscored the relentless pursuit of justice, proving that time and technology could work hand in hand to solve even the most enduring mysteries. Link to the perpetrator started to crystallize through methodical investigations, and the smart application of modern forensic technologies. With the critical piece of blood-stained fabric linking back to Robert Hayes, investigators had a solid lead to follow. They meticulously examined every facet of Hayes' life, tracking his movements before and after the crime. Interviews with former friends and acquaintances painted a picture of a man who, though initially appearing unremarkable, had a darker side. Witnesses confirmed seeing Hayes at the community bonfire on the night of the murders, a small detail that had earlier slipped through the cracks. This was further corroborated by the fact that Hayes had performed odd jobs near Lisa and Tom's home, making it plausible for him to be present without raising immediate suspicion. The DNA match was an irrefutable piece of the puzzle, but detectives needed to build a narrative that placed Hayes at the crime scene with motive and opportunity. They revisited the community, showing a photo of Hayes from around the time of the crime. This reignited memories in several townspeople, who recalled seeing him in the vicinity on multiple occasions around the time of the murders. One particularly useful account came from a now elderly neighbor who remembered Hayes' old pickup truck, a detail that matched the description provided by earlier witnesses. The breakthrough came when investigators discovered a crucial piece of overlooked evidence in an old police report, a partial fingerprint from the murder weapon. With advanced fingerprint technology, forensics was able to enhance and match this print to Hayes, further solidifying his presence at the crime scene. The combination of DNA evidence, witness testimonies, and the matched fingerprint created a compelling case against Hayes. The team also delved into Hayes' criminal background, which revealed a pattern of escalating behavior and a troubled history with authority, adding context to his potential motivations. Investigators traced his path following the murders, noting his sudden disappearance from the area and his reappearance under a new identity in another state. This erratic behavior suggested a man running from something, adding weight to their theory. The compelling narrative built by the detectives was not only based on scientific evidence, but also woven together by the human elements of memory, behavior, and opportunity. Each piece of new evidence brought the story into sharper focus, revealing a calculated crime that had almost slipped through the cracks of time. Hayes' capture and trial would later confirm the painstaking work of the investigators, bringing long overdue justice to Lisa and Tom. The link to the perpetrator was finalized through a meticulous process, demonstrating the power of persistence and the advancements in forensic science that finally provided the answers the community had been seeking for nearly 5 decades. Arresting Robert Hayes was a delicate operation, one that required careful planning and precise execution to ensure he could not escape the justice that had eluded him for so long. With concrete evidence finally tying him to the murders of Lisa and Tom, detectives carefully coordinated with law enforcement in Hayes' current state of residence. On a quiet morning, officers moved in to apprehend Hayes as he left his modest apartment. The element of surprise was crucial, and Hayes was taken into custody without incident, his bewildered expression hinting at a life spent evading the past. Back at the station, the interrogation process began. Detectives Jenkins and her partner, Detective Michaels, led the questioning. They knew the importance of building a rapport with Hayes while subtly pressing him for information. Initially, Hayes was guarded, his responses curt and evasive. He denied any involvement, maintaining a detached demeanor that suggested he believed he could outwit the investigators. However, the detectives were well prepared. They presented the DNA evidence, the damning fingerprint analysis, and the witness testimonies linking him to the crime scene. Each piece of evidence was methodically laid out, leaving little room for doubt. As the interrogation progressed, the psychological pressure began to weigh on Hayes. His once steady composure started to crack under the relentless scrutiny. The detectives employed a combination of strategic questioning and empathetic listening, carefully navigating between firmness and understanding to break through Hayes' defenses. During a particularly intense session, Jenkins confronted Hayes with the detailed timeline of his movements around the time of the murders. She highlighted the discrepancies in his alibi and the sudden disappearance that followed Lisa and Tom's deaths. Hayes' veneer of calm began to falter, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. The turning point came when Jenkins presented a photograph of Lisa and Tom, their faces smiling and full of life. The emotional gravity of the image seemed to pierce through Hayes' stoic facade. His eyes flickered with an emotion that was hard to place: regret, guilt, or perhaps a recognition of the humanity behind his heinous act. As the hours wore on, fatigue and the weight of incontrovertible evidence wore him down. Hayes' initial denials gave way to hesitation, and then, in a trembling voice, he began to speak. His confession was halting and disjointed at first, but as the words flowed, a chilling narrative emerged. He recounted how he had become fixated on Lisa after working near their home. On the night of the murders, he had seen Lisa and Tom at the bonfire, blending into the crowd while harboring dark intentions. He described his entry into their home, the escalating violence, and the subsequent panic that led him to flee, leaving a trail of devastation in his wake. Hayes' confession, while full of disturbing details, provided the crucial admissions needed to solidify the case against him. It was a moment of profound relief for the detectives, who had worked tirelessly to bring closure to the families and the community. The arrest and subsequent confession of Robert Hayes marked the culmination of decades of pain and unanswered questions, finally shedding light on the darkness that had gripped the town. It was a testament to the enduring pursuit of justice, the advancements in forensic science, and the relentless determination of those who never gave up on finding the truth. The trial preparation for Robert Hayes was a meticulous and intensive process, marking the final chapter in the long quest for justice for Lisa and Tom. As prosecutors geared up for what promised to be a landmark case, they knew that every detail had to be precisely planned and presented. The first step was gathering all the evidence that had been painstakingly collected over the decades. This included the blood-stained fabric with Hayes' DNA, the partial fingerprint from the murder weapon, and the enhanced forensic analyses that conclusively linked him to the crime scene. Each piece of evidence was carefully documented, catalogued, and preserved, ensuring that nothing would be left to chance in court. Prosecutors worked closely with forensic experts who were prepared to testify about the advanced methods used to extract and analyze the DNA and fingerprints. These experts would need to clearly explain the technological advancements that made it possible to reopen and solve the case, ensuring that the jury understood the significance and reliability of the evidence. Witness statements also played a crucial role in the preparation. Investigators re-interviewed key individuals who had seen Hayes near Lisa and Tom's home, those who had been at the bonfire, and anyone who had interacted with Hayes around the time of the murders. These testimonies were vital in painting a comprehensive picture of Hayes' movements and behaviors leading up to the crime. Every witness was thoroughly prepped for what to expect in court, ensuring their accounts were consistent and compelling. Prosecutors also strategized on how to present the emotional impact of the crime. This involved working closely with the families of Lisa and Tom to prepare for their testimonies, understanding the severe toll the murders had taken on their lives. The goal was to convey the profound loss and ongoing pain, creating a powerful narrative that would resonate with the jury. Legal strategy meetings were held frequently, with prosecutors anticipating potential defenses Hayes' legal team might use. They studied Hayes' confession in detail, ensuring they could counter any attempts to discredit it as coerced or unreliable. The psychological profile of Hayes was also scrutinized, preparing to address any claims of mental instability or diminished responsibility. The courtroom presentations were meticulously planned, from opening statements to the examination of witnesses and the introduction of evidence. Visual aids, such as crime scene reconstructions and timelines, were prepared to help the jury understand the complex sequence of events. Prosecutors practiced their delivery, aiming to balance factual accuracy with emotional impact. Defense arguments were anticipated and prepared for, ensuring that prosecutors could respond swiftly and effectively. The legal team also worked on jury selection, seeking individuals who could impartially evaluate the evidence while understanding the emotional gravity of the case. As the trial date neared, final reviews and dry runs were conducted, ensuring everything was in place. The trial was expected to be long and grueling, but the preparation reflected a commitment to achieving justice for Lisa and Tom, bringing closure to their families and the community. The stage was set for a courtroom battle that would finally reveal the truth, nearly half a century after that tragic October night. The trial of Robert Hayes was a pivotal moment for the small town, a community that had waited decades to see justice served for Lisa and Tom. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation and tension as the trial commenced. Journalists, townsfolk, and the bereaved families filled the gallery, their eyes glued to the proceedings. The prosecution began with a powerful opening statement by the lead prosecutor, who recounted the tragic night of the murders and outlined how modern forensic technology had finally nailed Hayes as the perpetrator. The prosecutor described Hayes' fixation on Lisa, his presence at the bonfire, and his subsequent actions that led to the gruesome crime. The jury listened intently, absorbing the gravity of the case. The prosecution's first witnesses were the forensic experts who had re-examined the evidence. They meticulously explained the advancements in DNA technology and how it allowed them to extract and analyze the sample from the blood-stained piece of fabric. Their testimony was both technical and accessible, ensuring that the jury could grasp the significance of the findings. Diagrams and visual aids were used to illustrate the DNA sequencing process and how it conclusively matched Hayes. The presentation was compelling, leaving little doubt about the reliability of the evidence. Next, the prosecution called witnesses who had seen Hayes at the bonfire and near Lisa and Tom's home. Each witness recounted their memories with clarity, describing Hayes' behavior and the details of his old pickup truck. Their accounts were consistent and reinforced the timeline established by the forensic evidence. One elderly neighbor, in particular, delivered a poignant testimony, recalling Hayes' suspicious presence on the night of the murders. Her words resonated deeply with the jury, adding a human touch to the cold, hard facts. The prosecution then introduced the partial fingerprint from the murder weapon. A fingerprint expert demonstrated how modern technology had enabled them to enhance and match the print to Hayes. The expert explained the process in a straightforward manner, using clear visuals to show the similarities between the prints. This evidence further cemented Hayes' connection to the crime scene. In a dramatic moment, the prosecution presented Hayes' taped confession. The courtroom fell silent as the recording played, Hayes' voice cracking as he recounted the horrific events. His admission of guilt was chilling, painting a vivid picture of the night Lisa and Tom were murdered. The jury watched and listened, their expressions reflecting a mix of horror and sadness. The defense team attempted to discredit the confession, arguing that it had been coerced. They questioned Detective Jenkins, suggesting that aggressive interrogation tactics had led to an unreliable admission. However, Jenkins remained composed and detailed the ethical procedures followed during the interrogation. She emphasized that Hayes had confessed voluntarily, his guilt evident in both his words and demeanor. The defense also challenged the reliability of the forensic evidence, but their efforts fell short. The prosecution's experts countered each argument with scientific precision, leaving no room for doubt. The defense's strategy of casting suspicion on other suspects from the original investigation was met with skepticism, as the jury saw through the attempts to divert attention from the overwhelming evidence against Hayes. Family members of Lisa and Tom took the stand, their testimonies bringing raw emotion into the courtroom. They spoke of the profound loss and the enduring pain they had endured for decades. Their words added an emotional weight to the prosecution's case, reminding the jury of the human cost of Hayes' actions. As the trial progressed, the defense's efforts to poke holes in the prosecution's case grew increasingly desperate. The prosecution's narrative remained coherent and compelling, each piece of evidence interlocking seamlessly with the others. The jury, presented with a clear and persuasive story, began to see the depth of Hayes' guilt. In closing arguments, the prosecution reiterated the strength of the evidence and the importance of delivering justice for Lisa and Tom. The defense, in contrast, struggled to shift the narrative, their arguments appearing fragmented and unconvincing. After weeks of intense and emotional testimony, the jury retired to deliberate. The tension in the courtroom was palpable as everyone awaited the verdict. When the jury returned, their decision was unanimous. Robert Hayes was found guilty on all counts. The courtroom erupted in a mix of relief and emotion. For the families of Lisa and Tom, the verdict brought a sense of closure. The justice they had long awaited finally delivered. The community, too, could begin to heal, knowing that the specter of that horrific night had been laid to rest. The trial of Robert Hayes was a testament to the relentless pursuit of justice, the power of modern forensic science, and the unwavering dedication of those who never gave up on finding the truth. It marked the end of a haunting chapter and the beginning of a new era of healing and remembrance for the small town. The verdict brought a wave of silence that swept over the courtroom as the judge delivered the words that everyone had been waiting to hear. Robert Hayes was found guilty on all counts. The air was thick with emotion, a collective exhale of relief, sorrow, and justice finally served. For the families of Lisa and Tom, the moment was profoundly bittersweet. Emily, Lisa's sister, clutched a locket close to her heart, tears streaming down her face as she whispered a quiet thank you to the heavens. The decades of anguish, unanswered questions, and relentless advocacy had finally culminated in this moment of clarity and resolution. Tom's brother, Mark, closed his eyes, a single tear escaping down his cheek, embodying a mix of sadness for the lives lost so tragically and gratitude for the justice that had been long overdue. The courtroom quickly became a tapestry of raw human emotion. Some people wept openly, while others embraced, their faces reflecting a gamut of feelings from relief to heartbreak. Strangers who had followed the case from its infamous inception to its long-awaited conclusion shared in the collective sigh of closure, their hearts lighter knowing that a semblance of justice had been restored. Detective Sarah Jenkins, whose relentless pursuit had brought the case back to life, felt a wave of accomplishment wash over her. Slightly nodding to herself, she knew that her efforts and those of her team had not been in vain. Outside the courthouse, the scene was no less charged. The gathered crowd, which had waited anxiously through the trial, erupted into applause and cheers as news of the guilty verdict spread. Reporters scrambled to capture the reactions, broadcasting the moment to a larger audience that had followed this twisted tale for nearly half a century. Candlelight vigils were planned to honor Lisa and Tom, their legacy now intertwined with the renewed hope for justice in the community. The town, which had been overshadowed by this haunting mystery, now saw a glimmer of healing on the horizon. Conversations no longer carried the weight of suspicion and fear, but instead focused on remembrance and resilience. The verdict signified not just the end of a long and arduous journey for the families, but also a new beginning for the town's collective spirit. The story of Lisa and Tom, once a grim legend, now transitioned into a narrative of justice realized and the enduring power of truth. As the sun set on that day, casting long shadows over the courthouse steps, one thing became crystal clear. The human spirit's resilience in the face of darkness had triumphed, and in the light of that triumph, the community could finally begin to heal. The emotional resolution of this case had a tremendous impact on the families of Lisa and Tom, forever altering their lives in profound ways. It was a moment filled with a complex mix of emotions, each family member experiencing their own journey of grief, relief, and healing. For Lisa's sister, Emily, the guilty verdict was both a blessing and a burden lifted. For decades, she had carried the weight of her sister's tragic death like a shadow over her soul. Emily had tirelessly campaigned for the case to be reopened, poring over old evidence and staying in constant contact with investigators. The moment the verdict was read, she felt a flood of emotions, immense sadness for the years lost, but also an overwhelming sense of peace. Her dedication to keeping Lisa's memory alive had been validated. That night, Emily sat by Lisa's favorite spot by the window, looking out at the quiet town, and whispered a promise to her sister that she would now focus on living a life filled with joy, just as Lisa would have wanted. Tom's brother, Mark, had always been the stoic one in the family, bottling up his emotions and focusing on being the rock everyone needed. The trial and the verdict left him grappling with feelings he had long suppressed. The sight of Robert Hayes finally being held accountable transported Mark back to that horrible night, reopening scars he had tried to cover. But it also brought a sense of closure, a feeling that justice had finally been served. Mark took a walk to the lake where he and Tom used to fish, sitting quietly with a fishing rod, allowing himself to grieve openly for the first time. The ripples on the water seemed to mirror his emotions, moving from turbulence to calm. For the Anderson and Wilson families, the verdict brought them closer. They had shared holidays, birthdays, and countless moments of sorrow, united by their mutual loss. Now, They found new ways to support each other, planning gatherings to celebrate Lisa and Tom's lives rather than mourning their deaths. They organized a memorial in the town square, where friends and neighbors could share stories and memories, turning the space into a garden blooming with flowers, each petal a testament to the love and kindness that Lisa and Tom had brought into the world. The emotional toll on the families had been immense, straining marriages and testing the bounds of parental love. Lisa's parents, now elderly, felt a bittersweet relief. They had watched the trial from their home, their frail bodies unable to handle the emotional upheaval of the courtroom. When they heard the verdict, they held hands and wept quietly, feeling a sense of peace they hadn't known in years. They placed a picture of Lisa and Tom on their mantel, surrounded by candles, bringing a sense of warmth and light to their home that had been missing for so long. The impact on the families extended beyond immediate relatives. Friends who had known Lisa and Tom and had been deeply affected by their deaths found solace and strength in the resolution of the case. They came together to support the families, creating a network of healing and compassion. Old friendships were rekindled and new ones formed, united by the common goal of honoring the memories of Lisa and Tom. The verdict also allowed the children of these families, some of whom had never met Lisa and Tom, but grew up with their legacy, to find a sense of peace. They learned of the love and kindness that defined Lisa and Tom's lives, choosing to carry forward those values in their own lives. Stories of Lisa's dedication as a teacher and Tom's generosity as a handyman became lessons of strength, resilience, and the unwavering power of community. In the end, the emotional resolution of the case did more than just bring justice to Lisa and Tom's families. It allowed them to transform their grief into a source of strength, turning a dark chapter into a story of resilience and redemption. For the first time in decades, the families could look to the future with hope, knowing that while Lisa and Tom were gone, their spirits would forever remain a cherished part of the community's heart and soul. The community reaction to the resolution of the 48-year-old double murder case of Lisa and Tom was nothing short of overwhelming. The small town, long shrouded in an air of unease and sorrow, erupted in an outpouring of emotions. As word of the guilty verdict spread, the streets filled with residents, some holding candles, others clutching photographs of Lisa and Tom. It was a spontaneous gathering of solidarity, a collective sigh of relief and triumph over the darkness that had plagued their community for nearly half a century. Local businesses displayed tributes in their windows, with handwritten notes and flowers adorning the town square. The community, which had once been divided by fear and suspicion, now came together in a shared sense of closure and justice. The town's social media pages were flooded with messages of support for the families, recounting fond memories of Lisa's kind smile and Tom's helpful nature. Old friends reconnected, sharing stories of the couple that had once been the heartbeat of the town. The wider public, too, was captivated by the resolution of this cold case. National news outlets picked up the story, highlighting the perseverance of the families and the remarkable advancements in forensic science that had finally brought the killer to justice. The case became a symbol of hope for other families grappling with unsolved crimes, demonstrating that time and technology could indeed collaborate to uncover the truth. Candlelight vigils were held not only in the town, but in nearby communities as well, spreading a wave of empathy and support. People who had never met Lisa and Tom felt a connection to their story, moved by the relentless pursuit of justice and the humanity of those who had fought for it. Schools held special assemblies, teaching children about the importance of community and the enduring impact of kindness and resilience. The town's annual community bonfire, once a shadowed reminder of the tragedy, transformed into a celebration of life and unity. Neighbors gathered around the flames, sharing laughter and tears, rekindling the sense of togetherness that had been lost. The bonfire now served as a beacon of hope, a symbol of the community's strength and the light that can shine through even the darkest times. The reaction also extended to the legal and forensic communities, where the case became a case study in the power of modern investigative techniques. Law enforcement agencies across the country took note, inspired to re-examine their own cold cases with fresh eyes and new technology. The detectives and forensic experts who had worked tirelessly on the case received commendations, their dedication and innovation celebrated as a testament to the evolving pursuit of justice. The resolution of Lisa and Tom's case not only brought peace to their families, but also rejuvenated a community, reminding everyone of the unbreakable ties that bind us together. The town, once overshadowed by a chilling mystery, now stood as a testament to resilience, unity, and the unyielding power of truth. The journey to justice had been long and fraught with challenges, but in the end, it illuminated the path to healing and hope. The lessons learned from the case of Lisa and Tom's tragic murders are profound and far-reaching, especially in the realms of law enforcement and forensic science. This case underscored the importance of perseverance and the relentless pursuit of justice, no matter how much time has passed. For law enforcement, one of the key takeaways was the crucial need for meticulous evidence preservation. The small blood-stained piece of fabric that became pivotal in solving the case was initially overlooked, highlighting the necessity of thoroughly cataloging and preserving every piece of evidence, even those that might seem insignificant at the time. This lesson emphasizes the importance of maintaining rigorous standards in evidence collection and storage, ensuring that all materials remain viable for future analysis as forensic technologies evolve. Another critical lesson was the value of continuous training and adaptation in investigative techniques. The local police force, initially unprepared for such a brutal crime, eventually embraced the advancements in forensic science, including DNA profiling and touch DNA analysis. This commitment to ongoing education and the adoption of new methodologies can significantly enhance the effectiveness of investigations, even in cases that have grown cold over decades. Modern forensic science played an instrumental role in cracking the case, demonstrating that technological advancements can breathe new life into old investigations. The introduction of polymerase chain reaction and improved fingerprint analysis techniques allowed investigators to extract and analyze DNA from even the smallest samples, showing that no evidence should ever be deemed too insignificant. This has led to a broader appreciation for the potential of forensic science to provide answers long after a crime has occurred, encouraging a more meticulous approach to evidence collection from the start. The case also highlighted the value of cross-agency collaboration. The involvement of state and national law enforcement agencies brought additional expertise and resources that were crucial in re-examining the evidence and identifying new leads. This collaboration underscores the importance of breaking down silos within the law enforcement community, fostering an environment where sharing information and resources is the norm rather than the exception. Furthermore, the role of community engagement and witness testimonies was pivotal. The memories and observations of residents, when revisited and re-evaluated in the light of new evidence, provided crucial pieces of the puzzle. This demonstrates the enduring value of community cooperation in criminal investigations and the need for law enforcement to build and maintain trust within the communities they serve. On a more human level, the case reinforced the significance of empathy and perseverance. The dedication of family members, particularly Emily, and the determination of investigators like Detective Jenkins, illustrated the profound impact of human resilience and the unwavering pursuit of truth. Their stories serve as powerful reminders that behind every case file are real lives affected by tragedy, and their fight for justice can inspire and motivate law enforcement professionals to never give up. In conclusion, the resolution of Lisa and Tom's case offers invaluable lessons in the importance of meticulous evidence preservation, continuous training and adaptation, the potential of modern forensic science, cross-agency collaboration, community engagement, and the human element in the pursuit of justice. These lessons serve as guiding principles for law enforcement and forensic professionals, ensuring that the quest for truth and justice continues to evolve and improve, giving hope to those still seeking closure for unsolved crimes. Reflecting on cold cases, the story of Lisa and Tom offers a beacon of hope for countless others still waiting in the shadows. The resolution of this decades-old mystery underscores a powerful message that no case, no matter how cold, should be abandoned. Every unsolved crime carries within it the potential for truth, justice, and closure, hidden within the layers of time and advancements yet to come. What this case illustrates is the extraordinary power of perseverance and the relentless pursuit of justice. For families who have lived with the anguish of unanswered questions and the pain of unresolved grief, the breakthrough achieved here serves as a testament to the enduring possibility of resolution. As forensic technology continues to evolve, so too does the capability to revisit and solve these cold cases. The advancements in DNA analysis, fingerprint technology, and forensic methodologies have transformed the landscape, providing new tools that can unearth the truths that have long eluded investigators. This case, once thought impenetrable, was cracked open not just by the persistence of detectives, but by the innovative application of modern science. It shows that with each passing day, we stand on the brink of new discoveries that can illuminate the past and bring long-awaited answers. For investigators, the lesson is clear. Every piece of evidence, no matter how minute, holds potential significance. The dedication to preserving and meticulously cataloging evidence can make all the difference when technological advancements catch up to the needs of an investigation. It's a call to remain vigilant, to maintain rigorous standards, and to continually seek new ways to apply emerging technologies to old cases. For the broader community, this resolution is a reminder of the strength found in collective memory and cooperation. Communities that stay engaged, that keep the memories of victims alive, and that support law enforcement in their ongoing efforts, play a crucial role in keeping hope alive. Witnesses who come forward, neighbors who remember details, and families who tirelessly advocate for justice are all part of the intricate web that can finally unravel the mysteries of cold cases. The story of Lisa and Tom also highlights the importance of cross-agency collaboration. When local, state, and national law enforcement agencies pool their resources and expertise, the potential for breakthroughs increases exponentially. It's a powerful reminder that collaboration can bridge gaps that seem otherwise insurmountable. And for the families still waiting, let this case be a source of solace and determination. The journey to justice can be long and fraught with setbacks, but as demonstrated here, it is never a journey in vain. The commitment to uncovering the truth, no matter how much time has passed, is a testament to the unwavering human spirit. The possibility of answers, of closure, and of justice remains alive, fueled by the relentless drive of those who refuse to give up. In reflecting on cold cases, the broader implications are profound. They remind us of the continued evolution of justice, the merging of past diligence with present technology, and the enduring hope that every case can be solved. Through the lens of Lisa and Tom's story, we see a future where no mystery remains unsolved, where truth triumphs, and where the light of justice reaches even the darkest corners of human experience. Solving the case after 48 years stands as a monumental achievement, not only for the field of forensic science, but also for the pursuit of justice itself. It brought long overdue closure to the families of Lisa and Tom, allowing them to finally start the healing process. Their decades-long wait for answers and justice was a testament to their courage and determination. Moreover, this resolution reinforced faith in the justice system, proving that no matter how much time has passed, the relentless pursuit of truth can eventually bring light to even the darkest mysteries. The case's conclusion serves as a powerful reminder that every piece of evidence, every witness statement, and every technological advancement is crucial in the fight for justice. It shows us that perseverance pays off, and that the combined efforts of law enforcement, forensic experts, and the community can overcome even the most daunting challenges. This triumph of justice brings hope to families still waiting for answers in their own cold cases, encouraging them to keep pushing for the truth. As we wrap up this chilling yet inspiring story, remember that there are many more mysteries out there waiting to be uncovered. If you found this story compelling, be sure to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on the next intriguing mystery story. Thank you for joining us, and see you in our next exploration into the unknown.